In a recent video, I talked about plans to extend our composting efforts into the fall and winter in order to ensure an abundant supply of homemade compost for our garden. I also talked about adding new free resources like spent brewery grains so we'd have enough nitrogen-rich compost ingredients to make this possible. But where would we put the new compost? With our 3 outdoor compost bins nearly full, we'd have to find a new location to build a 4th pile. And with just about every usable inch of the garden covered by a food crop, cover crop, walking path, or compost bin, our options were limited. So we decided that each year we'd reserve a section of one of the garden beds for our fall-winter compost pile. This year the pile will be here, next year here, the following year here, and so on. And the rest of the garden beds will be planted with food or cover crops. So let's take a look at how I started this year's fall-winter compost pile. I wanted to have a compost bin to contain the material, but I didn't want to spend beyond my $105.13 garden budget for 2013. So I fashioned a simple 3.5 by 3.5 feet bin out of materials I already had on hand: rebar, conduit, and chicken wire. Eventually I'd like to build the pile to at least 3 feet high. 3 by 3 by 3 feet is a great size for a compost pile. It's large enough to get the pile cooking, but not so large that air can't get to the center of the pile, or the pile becomes unmanageable. After the bin was cobbled together, I loosened and aerated the soil with a garden fork, which should help airflow and drainage in the pile. Next I started layering the compost materials. For the brown ingredients I had tree trimmings and aged wood chips. For the green ingredients I had a pretty good mix, including spent brewery grains, coffee grounds, comfrey, pole bean vines and leaves, grass clippings, and other green yard waste. I didn't have enough material to finish the pile, but hopefully enough to get it cooking. To start, I put down a layer of tree trimmings. This coarse layer of brown material should help get air into the bottom of the pile. Then I added a green layer, starting with a bucket of spent brewery grains. I kept the grains near the center of the pile because they smell pretty bad and can attract pests, so I wanted to cover them on all sides. I finished off this layer by adding grass clippings and other green yard waste around the perimeter of the spent grains. I then watered the pile before adding a layer of aged wood chips. As a rule, I'm adding about 1.5 parts wood chips to 1 part green material. These wood chips are already partially decomposed, so I'm adding more than I would if I were using fresh chips. My next green layer consists of coffee grounds and comfrey. I topped that off with more wood chips and watered the pile again. I continued to alternate green and brown layers until my supply of materials was exhausted. I also watered the pile every couple of layers. The spent grains, coffee grounds, and wood chips were already damp, so I didn't water much. And this is what the pile looked like after adding my first round of ingredients. I was happy to see that the pile was already starting to heat up. I'd like to have the pile at least 3 feet tall before the very cold weather sets in January and February. I'm hoping that a pile of this size will remain active during most of the winter. But this will be my first experience composting during the winter here in Zone 5A, so I'm not sure if the pile will remain active or not. I'll continue to add material to the pile over the next several weeks. As we move further into autumn, we'll have an abundant supply of autumn leaves. In addition, I'm currently exploring the possibility of acquiring yet another free resource for our compost. If that pans out, I'll be sure to let you know. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, remember, you can change the world 1 yard at a time.